The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hi, my name is Leo Connors, and welcome to The Ring and All Other Sports. Today I got two very special guests. They happen to be best friends.
Really?
The voice of New England wrestling, not independent. The voice of New England wrestling, Rich Palladino, and the Hurricane, John Walters. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you guys coming on.
Great to be here.
Of course.
When did you guys first meet each other?
I'll let you take this one.
We were talking about this. So John was training with Killer Kowalski and was wrestling for Sheldon Goldberg's New England Championship Wrestling back at the old Good Time Emporium in Somerville, which is no longer there. And I was there with some of the former managers of Chaotic, Randy Miller and Jamie J. Mikowski. And I saw him and a bunch of the other guys. And we didn't like talk business or anything, but he started wrestling for Chaotic a little bit after that. So it was what, like 01?
2001, I believe, yeah.
2000, 2001. He started working for Chaotic, so all of a sudden on the New England Informer, highly acclaimed website out here that knew everything about New England wrestling, I became Snitch Palladino, because apparently I was there paying off, all the Kowalski guys to come work for Chaotic. So so over 20 years.
Still haven't seen the money.
I'm waiting for mine too. I was supposed to get a kickback, for bringing in all this lucrative talent, but I got nothing.
That's a long time.
I think it was 2001. That's my guess. I started in 2000 and started doing shows about 6-8 months later, so it's probably 2001.
Yeah.
Well, I got to ask you this. I saw you work for Mike Spada at St. Stan's in Nashua. Mm-hmm. And you had light blue trunks. Do you remember that?
I do.
Was that your debut?
So my actual debut, if you want to call it that, was a Battle Royal for Sparta. It was a show Yokozuna was on. Do you remember the date when that show was? This was probably in 2000, because it was maybe 4 or 5 months after. I didn't even have wrestling gear at that point. I think I wore like wind pants or workout pants. Came in, got a couple chops, and got thrown out. So that was it. But actual singles match was that weekend. I think there was 2 shows when I did wrestle for Sparta, and I wrestled Jimmy Cash.
Yes.
In singles matches. I think it was Nashua and then the second night or the first night, vice versa. Yeah. But
Jimmy Cash told me that it was his first match that night.
It was both of our first matches as singles matches,
wow.
Yes. Yep.
Nice. Virgil was on that show.
I believe so, yeah.
And he left immediately, and Rick Fuller lit him up in the corner because he was arguing with Spada out back before the match. Then the match happened, and the ref was outside the ring. And Rick Fuller went to the ref and said, "Watch this." We were sitting there, me and my son. We're in the front row. And I could hear him clear as day. He goes in. He starts lighting him up in the thing. Virgil hits him low, puts his feet on the thing, gets the 1, 2, 3. Virgil goes in the back, grabs his bag, and leaves.
I do remember that. Yeah.
I was not there.
That was a crazy, crazy night that night. You also wrestled for Jim Kettner.
I did,
in the ECWA.
Yeah, that was a good time in my career. Kettner had a working relationship with Chaotic Wrestling, but that was after I had started.
Okay.
I was at a point where I felt like I had established myself in New England. It was time for me to kind of branch out. I had met Gary Michael Capetta, ring announcer of WCW, when he was doing his book tour out in New England. We became friends, and one day Jim Kettner needed a guy last minute to wrestle, I believe it was Mike Cruel. And Gary called me and asked me if I wanted to do it, and I did. And I went down there, and that started the relationship. And then Jim Kettner and Jamie from Chaotic kind of started working together after that. I'm not saying that it was because of me, but it happened after that. And yeah, Kettner was great. He put the ECWA Super 8 tournament on the map, and a lot of guys got their start with him. Right. Very smart promoter. He knew his crowd, knew how to fill the crowd up, and sometimes the shows were wacky and weird, but it worked. It worked for him and his audience. So
I followed him in the magazines, as much as they could, though, and they just fascinated me. I'm going to bring this guy's name up for the 5th time ever on the show. Do you remember JJ, the ring crew guy?
I think so. Jim he worked for Kettner?
Yeah.
He had
all the time.
He had so many characters, and he had a lot of guys that only worked for him.
Right.
But they were draws to those crowds in Delaware because they were those crowds that went back every month and knew the characters. And Like I said, he was a very smart promoter. He's probably one of the few promoters that actually made money in wrestling.
Right.
And he probably has every dollar he ever made selling his mattress.
Oh, without a doubt. It was a great working relationship because not only John, but a lot of the other guys, the Logans were wrestling down there, Chase was wrestling down there, and when they had the Super 8, and that was like it's still a thing.
It's still
a thing. I think it was the 10th anniversary. Because of the working relationship, I was asked to ring announce the 10th anniversary one.
nice.
So it was like my first time down to Newark, Delaware. I was doing mic check and I said Newark.
Yeah, it's not Newark.
And some of the locals yelled at me.
Right.
I was doing my welcome to, and they're like, it's Newark. But yeah, it was an experience. And Jim's a gentleman and a really, really good guy. And like John said,
Don't know where he is
businessman.
now, though. I don't know if he's still around, or I know he's not promoting, but I don't know if he's even active on social media or anything. He disappears for like 5 years, and he'll message me, and when I respond, he doesn't respond. So
Yeah. So
Yeah.
he's lost his smile, maybe.
Yeah, because Chaotic was getting guys like the Valedictorians.
Yep.
Who else was coming down?
Mike Krul was
Mike Krul, yeah.
yep.
And
Scotty Charisma was another
was
one.
it there and Shane something or an Alden something? Alden Chambers, maybe?
I don't
Not
remember that
sure.
name.
But those Echoes and those are the valedictorians.
Yeah,
But there was the other
Rodney
guys.
and, Billy Bax.
The other two that were kind of like Jersey Shore type gimmick.
Oh, chick magnets.
Yes.
Oh,
Well,
the chick, yeah.
no, not the chick magnets. It was there were one's a referee in WWE now.
The Blowout Boys.
Yes, there you go. There you go.
Danny,
Yeah,
Tommy
yeah.
T,
They
Tommy
were-
Trouble.
They were
yes.
from there too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was good. I mean, because I think it added a lot to, I think a lot of New England companies only offer like talent from New England. They don't bring a lot of outsiders in. So that work relationship was great because these guys got to go work down in that area. And we got a lot of different faces because we had like the valedictorians working with Handsome Johnny and Psycho, Pretty Psycho back
Right.
in the day and stuff too. And they had some great matches, some ladder matches and all kinds of good stuff. So it was really good. And not a lot of people were doing that back then. So,
One of my favorite characters from the ECW and actually became friends with him was Mr. Ooh La La.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
What a great guy.
Yep.
All right. So when you first started, a lot of the guys that you started with, Rich was starting then too, but like Slick Wagner Brown and Luis Ortiz and Jason Rumble and all those guys. Was it like training with, you trained with most of those guys?
Yeah, I started in 2000. It was January of 2000. I didn't know anything. I was a wrestling fan, of course, but I didn't know anything about what the process was going to be like. At Kowalski, I remember my first day walking up those stairs, being so intimidated, getting in the ring. The littlest thing, hitting the ropes, taking a back bump, it's so much to learn. And people who haven't done it will never understand because there's just so much stuff, foot positioning, body language. And then after you learn the moves, the psychology of putting a match together, that's even harder for some people. So yeah, it was a lot to take in. There was some times in the first couple of weeks I thought about quitting. I was sore. I was like, this is too much, but I just kind of stuck with it. And guys like Wagner and Ortiz and Aaron Stevens, Vince Vicalo, Rumble was there not as frequently, but yeah, it was just a great group of guys and no egos. Everybody was there to help each other. And then you had Kowalski and Hollow training us, and it was great. It was a great time in my life. I do miss it. Definitely something that you look back on. Just happy to be part of it for sure.
Well, you just brought him up, and I have to bring up your old 12-pack tag team partner, Vince Vicalo. He was here last week through Skype, and he lives in Nashua. And I didn't find that out until I had him on Skype.
Probably wiser to have him through Skype.
Yeah?
To be a liability in person, yeah.
We actually just texted him like right before the thing because, John lives in Florida now.
Right.
So whenever he's up, we try and get as much of the old crew back together, including Ortiz and whatnot too. So that's going to be the goal for however long John decides to stay this time to visit. But, those are great names from my past as well.
And Vicalo was so fun to work with because he was one of those guys, never had an ego, right? It was always about let's have a good match and let's have fun. And in fact, I think he was one of those ones that almost gave too much to his opponents because he never really wanted to do any of his own stuff. And I would encourage him, like, no, you got to tell me what you want to do because it's not just about me. But as a tag team opponents, so much fun. And then traveling with them is just, a story in its own. So definitely good time. I mean, his name fit.
The nickname Good Time Vince Vicalo was a shoot, because like John said, he'd want to have the best match, he'd want to have a good match and have fun, but the real fun was after the show, especially if we were like up in Maine and staying for the night or something, then there was all kinds of fun. And it was usually Vicalo was like the ringleader and the coordinator, and No, I think I would get us there.
Yeah.
But he would, figure out how much debauchery.
Very bizarre too, because he would be the kind of guy who would drink so much, and then the next morning he'd be up at 5 a.m. wanting to find a gym at the hotel. I was like, you kept us up for
Literally go to bed at like 3:30.
Yeah, and then I got to find a hotel here at the gym. I got to find a gym. I said, what are you doing? I said, go to sleep.
Yeah, because we had my car one of those trips, and literally we probably crashed at like 3:30 in the morning. At literally 5:30, he's like, "Can I have the keys? I gotta go to the gym." How? How is that even humanly possible? I've already called for a later checkout time.
Yeah.
But that's Vicalo.
Yep.
He's the best.
Nothing bad to say about him ever. Yeah.
Well, I know you have another good friend of yours that's in wrestling, and you met him, I guess, at Chaotic, but he's not from around here. Kevin Matthews.
Yeah, Kevin and I met. I don't remember. I think George Carroll, was promoting the show because he did promote shows for a while early on.
NEWA, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, it might have been that or another promotion he was booking for. But yeah, he booked Kevin and I against each other, and we had a good match, and we just became friends ever since. And Kevin actually lived with me for a while in Florida in my house for about a year. He rented a room in my house, and he's brought me out to Alaska, and we vacationed together. He's called me last minute, asked me if I want to take a vacation to Alaska a week before, and I said yes. And I've been to his house. He's been to mine. Really good guy. Right. Kevin's an acquired taste for sure because he's very loud. He's a New Yorker, but he's very real. So I'm drawn to people who are authentic and real, no matter what their personality is. And he's definitely, he's in the room,
right?
But just a good-hearted person, very good guy, and people you want to surround yourself with.
I'll have to go through my old wrestling files and stuff from when I started Chaotic since day one. I was kind of in charge of, so I was like ring announcer / talent administrator. They actually made me business cards, which I still have and probably sell someday. I don't know. But I have like a Kevin Matthews wrestling resume, and an 8x10 from when he wanted to come work for Chaotic. A bunch of those guys. So I mean, it was a really special. Cool.
Yeah, Kevin was trying to branch out a lot, and I know when I wrestled him for that show, I think it was George's show. I'll have to find out afterwards. But he had booked me for a lot of shows in Jersey and Pennsylvania. He knew people out there, and he's like, "I'm going to get you booked this weekend on this show," and he did. So he helped me get my name out there for sure.
Nice. You work for Gino Moore?
Yes, I did. Yes.
One of the more colorful characters in professional wrestling.
Yeah, I did. Yes. Was it NWS or something like that? One of those Jersey promotions, or JCW, Jersey Championship Wrestling. I think that was Gino Moore. But yeah, I did. There's so many promotions and states and years that I have them all blended together now.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, just recently, Kid Crazy had passed away. Did you have any interactions with Crazy at all?
I was telling Rich on the way here, I don't know if I've ever wrestled him, and I hate to say I don't know because you should remember who you wrestled, but I don't believe I did. I've been in locker rooms with him, and of course, we were cordial. I wouldn't say we were friends. We didn't talk outside of wrestling. Nothing negative at all, of course. But it was one of those things where when you wrestle somebody, the bond is built a little more than when you just know them through a locker room. So, but to die at that age is just nobody should. It's tragic. It's sad. And of course, when it's somebody in the wrestling business, it almost hurts a little more because maybe you see yourself in them, or maybe it's just the camaraderie that you build with wrestlers. And when one of them passes, it's part of you definitely feels it more than a regular death out on the street. So we definitely been on shows together, and always a good person. You hear a lot of stories that he was, not mean, but he was very difficult. I never saw that. I never saw it. I never heard it. I heard it now from stories from people saying that, but I never noticed it. And people who are real and authentic sometimes get that reputation, right? Because they're honest. And the world doesn't like honesty nowadays.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people in this industry too, they'll kind of just like, they're used to, Jared would pretty much tell you the way it was. And I think a lot of people in this business are submissive, and if somebody with a little more experience would be like, okay, yeah, I got it. But he would be like, if it was a veteran, no, I think we should do this, or I don't want to call that. We'll call it out there and stuff like that. Because I used to travel with Jared. So we worked like EWA, mostly out in Southbridge, Mass. Not so much the main shows, but that was the interaction with John and Crazy at the time. And I was there announcing like a 3-man booth, me, Dr. Everett Payne, and Bobby Cruz. And those were some really good times. And Vicalo was there and all that. But Crazy lived a couple towns over from where I live. And when he was not so much actively competing, he always wanted to be around the boys. He always wanted to see his friends. And he'd come over my house, and I'd bring him to a chaotic show or an XWA show down in Providence and whatnot. And there was just the love he had for this business, man. I know you were there, and I was there.
He was
really
a great
sad.
guy. I mean, he had no problem telling me a lot of times, you need to be more selective with your guests. I mean, I'll say it about 10 times. At least he'd hit me up and go, so he'd love it to know you guys are sitting here right now.
Yeah.
You want people that give it to you straight. I do. That's the way I've always been in my life. I don't have the sensitiveness, and I always try to be sensitive to other people a little bit. But if it's something that needs to be said, and I think that's probably why that reputation was with him. But like I said, I never saw it, and with all these good people saying good things about him, it's not a coincidence either. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you won the ECWA title, that was Christopher Daniels was the champ. It was a 4-way.
Yes.
You, Christopher Daniels, Austin Aries, and Mike Krul.
Yes, that sounds correct.
And you held that title for like 9 months. Does that sound about right?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, and I think I defended that title in a chaotic show, which is part of that crossover we were talking about. But yeah, and ECWA was one of those promotions. I would say even second to Ring of Honor at the time. That was Ring of Honor was around. It was probably the second top independent promotion. So you say what you want. Wrestling is predetermined, but anytime somebody has faith in you to be the face of the company or to carry a title, that's nice. And Jim Kettner, again, was one of those most reputable, respected promoters out there. And so, yeah, that was cool. And Christopher Daniels, I mean, working with that guy is just as fluid as can be. And Austin Aries, of course, fantastic. Mike Krul. So Jim definitely put me in with good guys. And those 4-way matches, 3-way matches back then with some of the top independent talent was super cool. That's when you get tested and see how good you really are when you're in that. But, yeah, I do remember that. And then I was his champ, which unfortunately meant I had to go to Delaware every month and do that drive. So,
What was that, like 6 hours? Five or six?
About 6 from 6.
I did it once, and that was before there was like Waze and MapQuest.
Right.
I was with
What is that?
exactly. Mr. I just got a smartphone.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
but I was traveling. It was me, Brian Logan, and Andre Lyons, and we were going down for the Super 8. We didn't have anything on our it was like a map, and I remember we got lost. Of course, I was driving. We ended up in like Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and this was
That's not close.
No, not at all. We just knew we were like looking like this can't be right.
Right.
And back then the Super 8, if it was on a Saturday night, Kettner wanted everybody in town Friday night and be a big dinner, the night before, and we were supposed to be like at the restaurant like 7:00, and I was like panicking, like, oh God, he's not even gonna let me announce this thing, but those are that's the evolution of time. Like I said, hell froze over when John Walters got a smartphone, which was a few months ago. And
Don't be so dramatic.
But now we have that technology now. Think about it, the way it was back in the old days.
Yeah, we print out the MapQuest directions, right?
Yeah.
You bring them with you, and then the littlest turn you miss because they weren't always updated for traffic and construction and new houses built here. So now you got to go 20 miles down the road. So yeah, it's changed. And technology, I've always been kind of resistant to it to an extent because I think it makes some people lazy.
Yeah.
And I feel like the intelligence at your hand has made people less intelligent.
I think you're right on that. Really, it's the truth.
So I never wanted to be a slave to my device, slave to my phone, be on social media when I'm driving. It's just, I had a friend that died from texting and driving, so it was always something that I wanted to kind of stay away from. And but sometimes you got to make a change.
Yeah. So every once in a while you have to do that. I'd like to bring up a guy that you had a really great feud with in Ring of Honor who has passed away. Xavier.
Yeah, that was tough. That was a tough one to take for sure. And the worst part about that was he had called me maybe a month or two prior, and I never returned his call. And when something like that happens, and not that I was intentionally not returning his call, I just I'll get back to you. And I know because he had left a voicemail about doing a wrestling match with him and doing a tag match. I think it was one of those things where I just didn't want to do it. So I was kind of like, maybe if I avoid the call. And he was a good guy. He would always text me on holidays. We'd text each other. We'd talk every so often. And the Ring of Honor feud, especially that one particular match we had, was something that people still talk about today. Still get people emailing me video clips of those ladder bumps and stuff like that. And just a good human being, for sure, And leaving a wife and a kid behind, again, at a young age. Deaths are one thing, but young deaths they're a little difficult to take. And, Yeah, a lot of people were choked up about that one. People who knew him, and he worked his butt off. I mean, he was every show when I wrestled with him, he wanted to have the best match on the card.
Right.
So yeah, sad. Like again, every time a wrestler passes away, especially somebody you shared the ring with, it hurts. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he was a great guy. I had a picture of him and my son from one of the shows I catered. So I hit him up and I asked him if I sent it to him, with the self-adjustment. He sent it back, and he did. And he had moved to Rhode Island.
I remember that.
He was living down here, and he asked me where he could go trade. So I hooked him up with Jose Perez. You know what I mean? And and then he was gonna make a comeback. I followed his MMA career because I was a fan of his. Pro wrestling.
Yeah, and I didn't realize he was in Rhode Island. I was doing a show somewhere in Rhode Island, and he had come up to me, and I you kind of like do one of these. Like, I didn't even know he was in the area. I'm like, John, really? Oh, wow, awesome. And he was talking about the MMA stuff, and but yeah, it was very shocking to hear that he had passed. I mean, he knew him far better than I did, but yeah, it's awful.
That's why I don't get a chance, to bring up certain people. That's why I wanted to bring them up, because I mean, it's just now with the Ring of Honor. Who contacted you first to work for them? Was it Doug or Gabe?
No, yeah. So I had sent them a tape because back then, of course, all independent guys wanted to wrestle for them. Sent them a tape and a resume, VHS tape back then, and I never heard back. And then again, when Gary Capetto was doing his book tour, he came to the Chaotic School, spoke, sold his book, gave advice to the wrestlers, and he was doing like a cross country tour. And I remember helping him bring his books back to his back to his car. And he asked me, where are you going to be next? And I said, well, I'm going to be at the MWF show, Dan Maratti's show, in Wakefield a couple nights later. And he said, well, I'm going to be there too. So I wrestled Luis Ortiz that night, and Capetto loved the match. I asked him for some feedback. And Gary's another guy who does not pull punches. And good or bad, he's going to tell you the truth. And he just told me, I like this, I didn't like this. We exchanged emails, and he actually called or emailed Gabe on my behalf. And then I remember driving back from a Chaotic show maybe the next week, and getting a call from Gabe saying we're having a show. It was like a do or die type match in Philly. And I went in there and wrestled. And yeah, after that, they used me regularly.
Yeah. I was like, that's where I first met you.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw you all the time wrestling, but I had never met you before. In 2006, you returned to Ring of Honor for one more match, was it?
Yeah, was that the Nigel McGuinness match?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I had. I was taking some time off. I had the Pure Championship. I lost it, and I just remember telling Gabe, I'm burnt out. I'm injured. I was building a new house at the time. I said, I need some time. I might be done with wrestling. I don't know. I just said, let me just take. So I took maybe a year off, and then I remember coming back. Went back to Chaotic and some of the other promotions. But yeah, Gabe contacted me and said, we're doing a show in Boston. We'd like to have you come in and wrestle Nigel. And we did. I think we were the opening match at the time.
Right.
Yeah, went in, had a good match, and yeah, that was the last time I wrestled for them up until this 2 years ago or a year and a half ago when I did TV for them. So that was like 13 years
in between.
Yeah, which is insane thinking about it.
Yeah.
You talk about that much
crazy.
distance. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he was supposed to go to Vegas. Was it Vegas? They were doing like...
Yes.
I don't know if I'm jumping ahead on...
No, please, don't. Go right ahead.
They were going to do a past first present.
Yes.
And Jay Lethal had emailed me and said, hey, I want to recommend you for this past first present. Are you interested? I said, sure. So I was going to wrestle Mark Haskins, kid from England, who I've wrestled in England before back in like 2003 or 4. And yeah, I remember the day before they shut everything down because of COVID, like the flights. And I remember some guys had already flown there. This was the day before I was supposed to fly in, and they said, don't get on your flight if you are, and they had never rescheduled it. But they said, we'll get you back on a show, and then they did that for some TV tapings. Yeah. I think it was 2021 maybe.
Yeah, because you did that funny Christmas match with Flip and Malonis. It was like a lot of New England talent. It was like a Ring of Honor. They had the boxes and, I don't know, gift.
Yeah, it was like they do like a 10-man tag every year for Christmas. It's like each person picks an opponent's name out of a Christmas gift or something like that.
Yeah, each captain pulls, grab a box and open it. But it was like in that match, I can't remember what the teams were, but he was in it. Brian Malonis was in it. Todd Sinclair was the referee. Yep. Flip Gordon was in it. So
a lot
of
New England guys.
Yeah,
in fact, that match aired Christmas week, and the match I had with Tracy Williams aired before. But the Christmas match was actually first in the tapings. So that 10-man was my first match back. And I hadn't wrestled for like 2 years.
Right.
It's regular for me to not wrestle for like a couple years at a time. So I remember the first bump. I'm like, ooh, this is what it feels like.
This is why I'm not doing it.
He's brought up Gary Michael Capetta. You have any Gary Michael Capetta
I grew up-
interactions?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot, especially
I
from
figured
that
you would.
affiliation. Because I remember I was probably like the first one jumping out of his shoes when Gary came to the old Chaotic Training Center, now the New England Pro Wrestling
You were there
Academy.
for that, correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I got his memoirs of a Wrestling Pitchman book, and I
Great
got it
book if
signed.
you haven't read it. Yeah, really good. Yeah.
But we've actually seen each other several times and keeps in touch. And I've done some interviews for YouTube for Title Match Wrestling. So at WrestleCon, I got to interview Gary a couple times. It's always good to have the interaction. Or I was in New York City doing some shows, WrestleMania week a couple years ago, and I hadn't even interacted with him. And I was literally like leaving the building. I was leaving Manhattan to go do a Chaotic show down in New Jersey back in 2019, and all of a sudden I hear Rich, and it was Gary. He's as real as they come.
Right.
So I mean, but that's somebody, as an old man, that's somebody that I grew up watching. He and Joe McHugh were the two ring announcers.
Me too.
So I'm like, I can't believe I get to have like real life interactions with this guy, and he's a really great guy.
He was at my house earlier this year. He has a condo in Florida, so he comes down every so often. He came over to my house and we had lunch, and he never misses one of my birthdays. He calls me every year on my birthday. He remembers it, and just a good human being. He helped a lot of the Chaotic guys out, because when we were doing the shows in Delaware for Kettner, Gary would let us stay at his house the night before. So a carload of us would come down, stay, and he'd cook us breakfast, and never wanted anything in return. He just always said, just help the next guy and be charitable with your time and help the next person get better, because that's how the business survives, by people helping people. So I took that to heart.
Yeah, I just met him at the Super 8 I went to the night Mr. Ulala won the ECWA title. We met him afterwards. Great guy.
Very. Yeah.
All right, I'd like to talk to both of you guys about a lot of Chaotic mainstays. Like how about we'll start with the Logans.
We talked about them just a few minutes ago outside. I think the Logans were guys who, if they wanted to, and they may have wanted to, could have been a lot bigger and made more money in wrestling.
Right.
Real brothers, looked good, good workers, good attitudes. I don't know, because I haven't had this conversation with them, but I think they were maybe content just being working for Chaotic and doing some local indies, or maybe they just never got the break that they should have gotten. But I was always big fans of them inside and outside of the ring.
Yeah, in fact, I've always been a big advocate, not just because they're friends, but because they're so talented. And I think the best tag teams are the legitimate brothers and whatnot. And, there was Matt and Brian, of course, and you had Nick, too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was a good time when they were in Chaotic, because you could do all kinds of fun six-mans with Nick involved and everything. But I agree with John. I think they never got their just due, and I think they could have been, big stars, because they're a very talented tag team. Yeah. Two great guys, and they've kind of stepped away right now, but you never know when it comes to pro wrestling.
True.
I mean, John's quit. I mean, you've not quit, but you've taken time off, I don't know, 5 or 6 times, and
Maybe more. Yeah.
keep showing up, and
I had a singles match with Brian and Chaotic one time too. That was fun, really fun. So even as singles wrestlers, they were great. But as a tag team, I think for sure they were more effective. And again, because they're real brothers, they look good. Matching gear. I thought it worked, and like I said, I think they could have gone further.
Right.
Yeah, and Brian's been helping out behind the scenes at Chaotic these days too. And Matt's kind of stepped away, but I just saw Matt recently, and he looks great. He's not that he was ever heavy or anything, but he's getting in shape. I'm like, you talking comeback? And he just kind of like shook his head, but you never know. But I mean, just two really great guys. Great guys.
And then Nick's giving back to the young kids with that
amateur
Doughboy wrestling.
Yeah.
The amateur wrestling.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the videos of some of the stuff him coaching. Yeah.
A lot of kids, their kids and their grandkids are learning how to wrestle from Nick. So it's excellent.
Yeah.
How about Todd?
What's your name?
Handsome Johnny Ivars.
The Duke of Elegance, Don Chesterfield.
Has anybody said a negative word about him ever?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. No, I don't watch WWE at all. I haven't in probably 15 years. But from what I've seen, clips that he posts on Facebook, and the fact that he's even there is a good thing, because a good thing happened to a good person. He worked so hard and had injuries and almost quit a couple times or retired because of his body breaking down, and now he's there doing well, making a name for himself. Very, very well deserved for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, the biggest thing in this industry is if your character or whatever gets stale, you got to reinvent yourself, and he did that with the whole Viking persona because when he was out with the injury, and then he came back with the bigger beard and a different look and whatnot. But like John said, nobody's ever had a bad word to say about him. He's as genuine. I know we keep talking about people that passed away, but when Dan Marati passed away, that was one of the first promoters that really, pushed Todd towards the top of the card. And I can tell you just from the text conversations that he and I had, he was really upset about that to the point where Dan's services were on a Friday night. And he had even said to me in a text, like, I wish I could be there, but he was on the SmackDown brand or was on the SmackDown brand at the time. And he had to be at SmackDown, but it really affected him because he's just so real and genuine.
In not just wrestling, but everyday life, acting, music. There's a lot of shitty scumbag people.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of them that do so well, and they make millions, and they just, whatever. That's life. Life's not fair. But for someone authentic with no ego, who never went into business for himself, to do well is always rewarding to watch. And
And we talk about him as a human, but I mean, but what a talent in the ring,
yes,
too.
very.
Whether it be doing a cartwheel or whatever, but like things, especially, that a big man shouldn't be doing, Todd totally can do.
Yep.
And he just keeps coming back and looking better, and whether it's elevating, the younger talent in NXT right now or whatever, it's just, you never know what's going to happen with him and his partner. I think they're a great tag team and they dominated Japan and Ring of Honor and whatnot. So, it's just, they're just such a great guy and a good friend. So
I've said it here a million times. A lot of lesser men would have quit.
For sure.
Like you said, with all his injuries that he's had, he just kept persevering and persevering. Real quick, I'll tell you this. My girlfriend's cousin, her first cousin was Todd's teacher when he was in the 11th grade.
Oh, wow.
So when she found out that I liked pro wrestling, the first thing she did was ask me if I knew him.
Yeah.
And it was great because he was just starting to get his break. His first, with Ring of Honor and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And she couldn't have been so happy. She was so happy for him.
Always in a good mood, too. Yeah.
But great guy. How about Kofi? He wasn't around very long.
He wasn't, no.
No, in fact, Kofi and I never wrestled. I think we were supposed to wrestle on an independent show once, and I don't know what happened. I think I might have had an injury, or he did, or something like that. But Kofi, even when he first started at the Chaotic School, I think this was the time where I was not really wrestling that much.
Yeah.
We're friendly, and we've chatted on social media recently, and but inside the ring, I don't think I've ever wrestled him or been in the ring with him. But I remember when he first started, we were on the same Chaotic shows together. And I remember just his athleticism and again a great attitude.
Yeah.
And I remember messaging him one time on Facebook and telling him that the coolest thing about his life and his posts is his family and how close he is with his family, and seems to be a good father and stuff like that. And that's more important than wrestling. And the fact that he's been there for so long and done so well in an industry, especially WWE, where they can be so cutthroat, and he's had a job for so long, excellent for him. And again, he deserves it. Worked hard, but he wasn't there long. He got signed very early, right?
Yeah, I want to say he might have had 10, maybe 12 matches in Chaotic.
Right.
Before they discovered him, because some agents from WWE had come to the school, and he was very green, very new to the business. But they were like, "This kid has a physique. We can mold him into something." And sure enough, they did, and he's been there forever. And he's just a really good guy. I mean, when I took my son to his very first WWE show was at the Worcester Centrum, and I had texted Kofi and said I was going to be there. He's like, "Well, let me know where you're sitting if I want." And so wherever my seats were that he had got me were like right on this like easily accessible from the aisle. Let's just say that. And he came over and like rubbed my son's head and was like, "Welcome to your first show."
That's awesome.
And then like literally called me like on the way home and like talked to my son, which how many people have that kind of opportunity? He's just real. And I mean, just as a human and as just a real genuine person, I mean, I'm a fan before I'm anything else. I may work in this industry, but I'm a fan first. And when he was world champion and they were in Providence, I hit him up. I'm like, "I'm not coming to SmackDown or anything tonight, but you got 5 minutes?" I said, "I really just want to get a picture of me, you, and that belt."
Right.
And she's like, "Absolutely." And we hung out for a good amount of time and, just talked about the old days and everything. And when I was doing the podcast with Jamie, he actually did an audio opening for it. Me and Jamie had a little podcast called Let the Chaos Begin.
Yeah, I remember.
And I said, look, I don't even know if I should be doing this. I didn't tell Jamie. I said, can you? And he did, right on my phone,
Right.
did like an opening, like mentioning the podcast and all that stuff. He had to get approval from WWE, and it was blessed. He was like, go ahead, have at it. And then me and Jamie
awesome.
wrapped things up like 2 months later. So I don't know
Yeah,
what we're going to do
you
with
guys
that
didn't
opening.
go very long. Is
No.
Julian and Tarzan starting back up again? I thought I saw something about that.
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I know that Julian's going to be doing some training.
Right,
Which is
which is
great.
great.
Yeah. But I don't know if they're starting to. I enjoyed their podcast.
Maybe he'll be
me
less
too.
miserable.
I don't know. You never know.
And how about Brian Malonis?
Miserable human being. That's why we get along so well. We're both miserable.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember when we did the Ring of Honor tapings for the TV during the pandemic. They brought us all in like a week early, quarantined us in the room, made sure our tests cleared before we did the tapings. And I remember him and I just messaging each other, asking how miserable he was. He asking me how miserable it was. Like, this coffee sucks. You know, he's a funny dude. And again, another guy who early on, he'll be the first to tell you, did not have a good attitude. I remember a lot of the chaotic guys and the coaches kind of giving him shit for his attitude, and he'll say it. He'll say, I was a jerk and I didn't want to put in the work. And then once he did that self-reflection, which every human being needs to do,
Right.
That's when he really started to do a lot better and get bookings. And he traveled all over and was a big part of Ring of Honor until they got sold.
Yeah.
Good guy. I get along with him very well.
Yeah, and miserable is the key word. So it's like when we were in the locker rooms together, it'd be like if one of us walked in the door, miserable? Yeah, miserable. You know, whether it was whatever, not looking forward to the night or the ride home. Miserable? Yeah. So it's always been like a thing. But Brian is, again, another dear friend, and I was so happy to see him get those opportunities in Ring of Honor. I don't think he's done because he's another big man that can do things
Right.
that big men shouldn't be doing. Or as he says, pound for pound, the best pure wrestler in the world today.
Yeah, that's his thing now, right?
Yeah, I mean, he can go, and he's still got a lot of gas left in that tank wherever he lands.
And what about his podcast co-host, Mike Crockett, who's on an extended hiatus?
That's a miserable human being, Mike Crockett. Oh, Mike Crockett. I think he's the one that we started the miserable comment with because he was so miserable all the time. Yeah. But again, miserable is a good thing.
Right.
If that makes any sense. Yeah. Crockett's great. Good referee. I'd always try to mess with him in there when I was in the ring with him.
Great referee. He did a lot of that ECWA stuff.
Yeah,
too.
he was part of that talent exchange too. He used to go down and do Kettner shows.
Nice.
And Crockett's a good dude. I haven't seen him in years. I don't remember the last time I saw him.
I haven't. I did the podcast with he and Malonis years ago. That might have been the last time I've actually seen him other than a picture on social media, but really good guy. I brought him into Chaotic when we needed referees.
Right.
And he was, doing stuff with Kowalski and some of the other indies, and I immediately thought of him and wanted to bring him on board, and I'm glad that happened and he got the opportunities that he did, not just in Chaotic but elsewhere, like we were saying. Good guy. Miserable.
We'll
Miserable, but
we'll
good
stick
guy.
with another ref. I know he's a Bruins fan. Todd Sinclair, Fat Pants.
Is he miserable? Yeah,
He travels with Bobby Cruz.
Yeah,
so-
him and Bobby Cruz are the most miserable
In the world.
SOBs I've met. Yeah, Todd's great. In fact, I remember Todd being a fan before he started reffing for Chaotic, and he would go to the shows with Eric. Did you remember Eric? Him and Todd did the booking together. Eric Arsenal. He
Everybody
passed
called him
away.
Mucko.
yes,
Mucko,
yes,
he passed
Mucko,
away.
yes,
We lost
Yeah.
him as well.
I remember when I first started wrestling, I would see them during certain wrestlers that they didn't like matches. They would pull newspapers out and read the newspapers as these guys these boring wrestlers that they didn't like. And then he became a referee. And if you ask Todd, he'll tell you that Eric was the one that pushed him to do that and follow his dream. And I remember Todd coming to one of the Ring of Honor shows with me, and immediately after that, he started refereeing for Ring of Honor, and he was their head guy for, a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, good ref. He really cared and
Definitely.
Smart.
Todd, Eric, and Mike were at like every Chaotic show, and they would give the stink nose if there was something they didn't like. If it wasn't the newspaper, they'd literally just hold their nose like stinks, or when Randy Miller, like when Randy was becoming like he was like one of the owners of Chaotic, but ended up getting involved in like storylines.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it was Todd, or it might have been Eric, just yelling out, "Randy Miller, you should be ashamed of yourself," because as real fans
Right.
with some insider knowledge, like the promoter should not be forcing himself into the main
He's not Vince.
storyline.
But for a long time, everybody wanted to do that. I still see that at shows today.
Oh yeah.
And
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Right,
And again, the inside wrestling fans are usually more offended buy it than the actual fans. I say if fans are buying something,
Right.
do it.
Run
You know
with
what
it,
I mean?
yeah.
Yeah, run with it. It's not about what the insiders want or don't want. It's like, oh, they shouldn't be doing this. Like, well, there's more casual fans watching than actual pro wrestlers watching the program.
But I just remember hearing that tape and hearing it loud as day.
Yes.
Right.
Clear
Yeah.
as day. Randy Miller, you should be ashamed of yourself. So, yeah.
He wasn't.
Great guy.
How about another local guy who's done really well for himself in the WWE right now in a different way? You brought him up earlier, George Carroll.
Yeah, I haven't talked to him in a while, and I don't know what his role is now. But last I heard, he was living in Florida. Because I remember him commenting on my Facebook post saying he was living in Florida. But is he working for WWE? Was he?
I
working
think he
for
got released for a short period of time, but
And
then
they brought him right back. They did. They brought him
Okay.
right
Yeah.
back.
Well, then-
He's very involved in the NXT product.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I know he's networked and put himself out there, and yeah, he's helped me a lot too. He used to make tapes for me back for different companies, resume tapes and shop promos when I was doing my RJ Brewer character. So yeah, always willing to lend a helping hand, and again, just a huge fan that cares. Probably miserable.
miserable, yeah.
Oh yeah, no,
But
he's a miserable guy.
Yeah, but he's genuine, and he tried to help me a couple of times when he was doing stuff with like MLW, and they had an open ring announcer spot, and he was like, he would like literally text me like right in the middle of the workday, and was like, I need this, this, and this from you right now. You know, I didn't get it because I'm miserable, I stink.
Yeah,
but no, George has always been a good friend and always willing to help out anybody. So
First guy to give me advice. I asked him for advice, and he had no problem giving me it. It was great. George just a big supporter of wrestling.
Very, yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
and local guys and people that are hard work. That's one thing. George has worked hard, like you said, he networked, but he worked his butt off to get where he is today.
Yep.
The wrestling industry needs more fans and more people who actually care about the business, not just people looking to make money in it. So that helps.
All right. I hate going back to people that passed away, but I know you were in a stable with Jimmy Rave.
Oh God, this one was bad. Yeah.
And that's another guy that I was talking to at the end of his life quite a bit. You know, he hit me up, you guys can imagine why and all that, but I always thought he was a good guy when I met him, and I, would send him some money here and there.
Yeah.
I liked him.
Yeah, I wrestled him, teamed with him in Ring of Honor, and then once that ended, I really lost touch with him. And that happened. That's a normal part of this industry. Is you wrestle people, you trust them with your life or your body, your health, and then you go away. You may never see the person again. Sometimes bonds are built. But with him and I always got along with him.
Yeah.
It just was, he lived in Georgia, I lived in Massachusetts. We never kept in contact. We weren't like friends outside of wrestling. But I remember going to Alaska this past December and wrestling a match. And somebody in the Airbnb in the house we were saying, have you heard about Jimmy Rave? And I remember hearing he had some health problems. But I didn't know that he had one limb left.
Yeah.
And then when I saw that, I was just like, oh my goodness gracious. And you hear different stories of how it happened. Regardless, just terrible. And whether it was self-inflicted through whatever drug use, like they're saying it might be, or infections.
Right.
In the end, what a lot of wrestlers and people need to do is start looking at this stuff as wake-up calls. We're all a product of our choices, right? We all, and for some people, addictions are harder to kick than others. It's very, very, very hard. But this industry should serve as a big lesson for people in life to what not to do with your money, not to do with your health, because there's so many walking, talking examples from the past and from the generation before us that are teaching us this. It's just how many people actually take notes and learn. And again, so much of it is ourself, it's our choices. And for some people, for me, I've always had insane willpower. I've always been good on sticking to diets, budgets, all that stuff. But I have friends who are the opposite, and I know it's a struggle for them.
Right.
So when I saw that, and then I said, how can you live like that? I remember Zach Gowen, I was in the house with him,
Yeah.
who's missing a leg. And he brought up a good point. He said, I lost my leg when I was like 12 or 13 years old.
Right.
He just lost 3 of them in his 40s. So that's
In a span of like 2.5 years.
that's a tough adjustment, because he said, when I lost my leg, I knew that I was in pain and
Right.
it was changed, and you have all these decades to grow and learn how to adapt. And with Jimmy, it's like, what do you do?
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm not sure how he passed. I don't know if it was just, but regardless, tragic, awful.
Yes.
No other way to say it.
no doubt. I announced him once in close to 29 years, and it was a handful of years ago too. It was like the only interaction I had with him. So really, but it's tragic. Because
In a good wrestler and in a handsome kid, like he could have gone
Right.
on and done modeling or
yeah.
whatever. It's like whatever. And again, in the end, you're consumed by your choices.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, last one. I promise, and then we'll end this thing on high notes.
Okay.
all right.
DC.
Oh yeah, yeah. That one was tough to take too. And DC, going back to authentic, real people, he was. Didn't always agree with his approach to handling problems, or his when he picked and chose his battles. But I always got along great with him. Wrestled him a handful of times. We trained together in the early Kowalski days. He was there. I don't remember if he started after me or before. I want to say, I think Wagner brought him into Kowalski's. They were friends from the gym. Dave was. We would just text each other random curse words, and then a year later do the same thing. I always got along with him. We never conflicted. We never argued. We never fought. But again, I think he's one of those persons. If he liked you, he was super loyal. If he didn't, he let you know. But the death was very sudden. Yeah.
I remember you were home visiting when he passed.
Yes.
As fate would have it, like I'm home and one of my friends has just passed away, and we went to the services.
What year was that?
It's a good question.
18, 17,
No,
18?
that was, I can tell you, it was 2016 because my brother died in 2015 and my stepdaughter died the same day Dave did in 2016.
Yeah.
So I was living in California at the time, but I was probably home for the summer. I would come home for a month every summer. Yeah. So it was in July or something like that, wasn't
like
it?
we had
No, it was August 16th.
Oh, August. Okay,
It's definitely, I know the date because my brother died, like I said, the year before on the same day.
Oh, so you got it
So,
memorized. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, it was. I was home.
And
Yeah.
to keep the morbid theme going, I feel like we had 2 services I feel like there was somebody else.
AJ Matrano.
8, yeah.
Yep, there's another one. All in the same, that same summer visit of 2016. But, Dave was somebody, like I was actually going to blurt out when we were talking about Kid Crazy and the same way he spoke his mind, and some people may have read him wrong. I was going to blurt out, same, DC Dillinger had that same, aura.
I was afraid of him. I'm not even joking. Just like his persona, I was afraid. Like, if I seen him somewhere, I would walk somewhere else because he just looked unapproachable.
And I knew Dave on a personal level. If you were the kind of person that had a problem with him, you went up to him, like, hey, can we talk? And like he would 100% be a man and say, yeah, let's talk and shake hands. He wasn't looking for problems.
Yeah.
He just didn't have a problem. He didn't have a problem finishing stuff.
Yeah, he was very legit and just very real and spoke his mind. And it's kind of like I said when I posted something about Crazy passing away. You knew where you stood with him,
Right.
and I'm glad that I was on the good side of that, good side of Dave, and miss him every day. But such a talent. But
I'm glad we're having a memorial service here for everybody.
This is miserable. We've made this miserable.
I'm sorry.
I didn't know this was part of it.
Yeah, Leo, we didn't talk about this ahead of time.
I'm sorry. I had to bring up a lot of these guys. But I know this is what I want to bring up about your WWE work. My favorite thing I ever seen you do in WWE was when you were eating a sandwich and the Big Show just grabbed you, took your sandwich.
Yeah, stuffed it in my face, threw me over the table. Yeah, so this was when the Big Show and Eddie Guerrero were having their feud.
Yep.
And apparently the week before Eddie Guerrero had some burritos delivered to the Big Show. He ate them, and then he ended up going to the bathroom for the whole show.
Yeah,
And
Big Show had put laxative. Eddie had put laxative
yes.
in the burrito and made Big Show poop himself.
So this was the Boston Garden or Fleet Center at the time.
No, this was Hartford.
Hartford.
Because I was with you guys.
Oh, we did so many
Right.
dark
You
matches.
did a lot.
A lot,
Yeah.
years worth. Every
that
time
was
they were
Hartford.
local. But I remember we're saying we're going to do this skit with the Big Show. You guys are not security. You're just like
We were extras.
We were extras, but we were in security shirts or staff shirts. We were staff workers as extras on the table eating. And they said you're gonna eat a burrito, and when Big Show comes across, you're gonna try to hide it. And so that's what happened. He said, "Oh, you're eating a burrito, huh?" And he said, I don't remember what the exact lines were. He asked me what I was eating.
And you were like, "Oh,
Nothing.
nothing." You
Nothing. I
tried
was
to cover
hiding
it
it.
up, and then he was like, "It's a burrito." And he's like, "You making fun of me?" And that was it. So John took the heat, and we all powdered off.
Well, I don't know if you remember, but he stuffed it in my face, then threw me over the table. The first time, I hit the table and fell back, so we had to retape it.
Right.
So Big Show was so like a gentle like bear. He was like pulling cheese and beans out of my nose with a napkin. He was like he was the nicest guy in
Right.
the world.
Yeah.
And then the second time we did it, and he was so appreciative. I remember Arch Kincaid and I wrestled the Big Show on SmackDown in a handicap match twice, and the Big Show offered to put us up in a hotel in Atlantic City and thanking us for doing the job for him, and very nice. And every time I saw him after that, he was always so nice to me.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was down there for that Raw and SmackDown. This is in 2003 when I had my tryout that Dr. Tom Pritchard helped facilitate for me. I also didn't get that job either, so that's why I'm still here. But I remember Tommaso Ciampa's now wife at the time. She was on the production side.
That's
She was
right, I
actually
remember,
she was producing that segment, and I was just there for my tryout. And she's like, "Do you want to be in this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do." And I was sitting across from him, and they didn't feed me a script or anything, but I just ad-libbed and see
Yeah.
if they kept it in. Because
Didn't you go, dude, or was that
I'm
by
like,
Calla?
dude, I was like, dude, put it down. Just like that. Just put it down. I was just like, I added it, figure if they're gonna yell at me, what they're gonna do, whatever. But yeah, and that was it. And then we just knew what was gonna happen. And
Those skits were fun, believe it or not. You know, you go
Oh,
there,
I bet.
you go there, you want to get a match, you want to get looked at serious,
Right.
but you do what they ask you to do. You go there, and I've done skits. I was a cop. I've done pull-aparts, security, you name it, and they were always fun. Is
Right.
working on your acting skills. But that particular one, I remember he remembered it too, because I remember seeing him years later, reminding him. And he's like, "Oh, I remember."
picking cheese out of your face.
Yeah, but very gentle man.
Yeah.
And you worked with quite a bit of people. You worked with Mortis.
Yeah, another guy that died.
Yeah.
Chris Canyon.
Yeah, all my opponents died. Jeez. Yeah, he was doing the Mortis gimmick. And this was a dark match. I think this was somewhere in Albany, New York or something. Again, I did so much work for WWE as extras, dark matches, and I just remember he gave me a lot of stuff. He's like, it was a competitive back and forth match, and I didn't know him on a personal level. I just did the match with him.
Right.
But again, another guy they said was just such a nice guy, but couldn't control his demons, and I didn't know him well enough to comment on his personality. But I always that one interaction, that match I had with him was good, and I had positive experience. But again, you don't know what people are battling.
Right.
You know?
You have any?
I have I never had any interactions
All right.
with Chris at all.
How about I know you wrestled the Hurricane Helms.
Yes. I think Arch Kincaid and I wrestled him and Rosie on Sunday Night Heat. It was,
Yeah, I was trying to
Hurricane and
stay
Rosie.
away. I was trying to stay away from Rosie this time.
Did he
why I
die
said
too?
the Hurricane.
Yeah, Rosie's gone.
Yeah,
Jesus.
yeah.
I don't think I should be sitting next to you. I'm a little scared right now.
I have a funny Shane Helm story, actually. So I met him then,
Yeah.
and then when I was wrestling for Lucha Libre USA, they brought him in because he's a masked guy,
Right.
and they brought him in, and we traveled together. And one night we got to a hotel. I think this was in Texas. We were doing like a 6-day tour for Lucha Libre USA, and I remember us rooming together. We go up the elevator, and we put the key in, and we open the door, and it's locked. There's somebody in there. And we go, sorry, and we went back down there, and just like, somebody's in the room. She's like, no way. We go, yeah, and Shane's just like, it was like 2 in the morning. He's like, somebody's in the room. And they're like, well, so nobody should be. I said, well, we can't go in that room because somebody's in it. And Shane has this sarcastic wittiness about himself, and very quick on the trigger to tell somebody off, and that was interesting. And we always talk about that now, but I don't really keep in touch with him. But if I see him out at a convention or at a
Right.
show, we're always cordial. But good worker too. Yeah, very very good. He took that gimmick and really made it work. I
Stole
think.
your gimmick.
Yeah, I was never a superhero.
You were the Hurricane first. Though.
You were the Hurricane first.
There's many. I live in Florida. There's many hurricanes.
True.
All right, now I got to bring this up because I love to cook, and I'm jealous. How's his outside kitchen?
Oh,
You know, when I was at his house,
And that's why I'm asking.
yeah, because I stayed with him when I was doing shows WrestleMania week last year. The kitchen wasn't actually installed at that point, so
Okay.
I stayed at the house in another town, but we went over there, excuse me, twice while I was there. They were still building it because with COVID and everything, there was such a delay in building materials being available.
I put my down payment down on that kitchen, and 13 weeks later they did it because grills were hard to find, appliances, labor, of course, all over the country. But when I closed on the house, of course, I paid extra. It was like $600 to have the rough-in plumbing and electric there because he's like, if you're going to buy a kitchen, you're going to build a kitchen, do it this way.
Right.
It saves them from having to bring an electrician in. But I spent $14,000 on that kitchen. I have not used the grill yet once.
I'm sure you will, though. Don't worry. It's going to happen.
Summer's coming, yes.
But again, the house was still being framed, and I have some pictures of it. He's like, all right, and the stove's going to go here, and the sink's going to go here, and they're going to do this. And
oh, yeah, I was immediately jealous. I'm like, man, that's awesome.
Yeah, and outdoor kitchen and pool in Florida is a must. And like the timing, I was telling Rich, the timing of me building that house is the same house just sold next door, like 6 months after I built mine, the same model for $200,000 more than I built mine for. So it was so many people moved to the state during the pandemic because it was wide open and there was jobs there, and also I think because of COVID, a lot of people could work from home. So why not work at a state with no income taxes?
Yep.
And it's always been a retirement state anyway. So it's been a very popular destination recently, and the traffic, even in the town I live in, old farm town, and now it's just overrun. And
how long you been in Florida now?
So I moved down there in 2009. I was there for 5 years.
Yep.
Then I went out to California for around 4. Been back in Florida now for almost 4 years.
Nice.
Yeah, I have property there, but I have portable work. I can kind of work anywhere. So may eventually make that a rental and move somewhere else. Who knows?
Not even your house; it's Micah's house.
Yes, it's yes. That's why I built it.
I'm a huge dog fan also, and I told you before, I love your dog. I love watching him through your pictures. It's really awesome.
I'll see if I can get him on the show. I'll ask him.
Micah's awesome because when I stayed with him last year, the Sunday night of WrestleMania, he was working his real job, and he's like, "You mind just staying here with Micah?" I was like, "Not at all." It was like the best. Like, he is the most docile, miserable.
He's a very sweet dog. I've had him for almost 14 years now, and he's starting to break down a little bit, neurological problems, arthritis. But for a 15-year-old dog, he's as in good shape as the vet's ever seen. So it's just
that's good.
Keeping him happy now and fed. And
I went home and he texted me like that night. He's like, "Micah's looking for you," because I was there for 5 days.
He was, It's very social.
So
didn't say bye.
Of course I did. I took a picture with him.
Right. He's almost fully deaf now, so he wouldn't hear the goodbye.
Yeah.
He doesn't hear me come into the house anymore. No, but he'll see me.
Now, if you're up here, is he down there?
Oh, no, he's here.
Oh, he's here.
Oh, yeah, I drove up with him, and
nice.
Yeah, that's a tough long drive for him and me.
Right.
But I complained more than he did.
Yeah.
So how was going to Alaska with WrestlePro?
So I went there.
I knew that was going to happen eventually. I figured because I knew you were friends with Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin and I actually went there for a vacation. And
I do remember that.
That kind of energized him to start the promotion out there. And he'd been trying to get me on the show out there for a while. And I finally did. And it's such a beautiful state.
Right.
But in January or December, whatever month it was like negative 20 outside. Wow. Yeah, I'll pass on the winter trips there again. But it's breathtaking.
Right.
Yeah, breathtaking. Yeah.
And you went to Costa Rica with them, too.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember following the pictures, man. I love you guys have good times, man.
Very random trips, yes.
One last thing. Druid. You were a Druid at WrestleMania for The Undertaker.
Yes.
Were you Rich up there,
I was
too?
not, no.
Okay.
Yeah, what was that, WrestleMania 20, right?
Yes.
Yep, I remember being booked again for extra work and having this heavy torch to hold up. And they were so heavy. And I remember Undertaker walking under, I said, "I'm going to drop this on him," because it was so heavy and the fire is dripping, and it was probably the best workout of my life, but the most nerve-wracking. But one of those things where you can actually see us and see our faces when in those clips. Cool moment, especially in Madison Square Garden, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks.
Of
we can
course.
do this again sometime whenever
Sure.
you're back. Let me know.
Absolutely.
Please. Guys, that's it. We're out.
Thank you.
Peace.
Appreciate it.
Hi, guys. I hope you're enjoying the show. Listen, I could use a little help to grow my YouTube channel. So if you could please like, share, and subscribe. That's most importantly, subscribe. Send me a direct message, and I'll give you a shout out here on the show. My YouTube channel is real simple. It's just my name, Leo Connors. Thanks in advance. Peace.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.